And then finally, last but not least, is the notions of leadership and leadership capacity. And after you've done some reflection on this, I want to sort of conclude the morning by talking a bit more about leadership. Obviously there's no disguising the role and importance of the principle in driving forward improvement. I've added the word longevity here as well, because I do think that this is not a dip in and dip out situation. And we'll talk a little bit more about the length of engagement that seems to be important towards the end of the morning. Building a team, again, we saw that in the video, a flat team, relatively large, and the notions of distributed leadership as we go through as well. But that doesn't mean that the principal is not having a hands-on role either. It's about how we, and increasingly, when I talk about system leadership towards the end of the morning, the sort of system leadership and distributed leadership are the opposite sides of the same. So those are some of the things we find out about leadership. Again, have a discussion on your tables, jot a few things down, rag rate yourselves, and then I want to then just conclude the morning session by talking a little bit more about leadership and how leadership actually changes as we sort of go through the process of transformation. Okay, well, let's just try and conclude the discussion this morning by actually looking a little bit at the leadership dimension here, because as we've been saying, this is absolutely critical. And for me, the issue that's been coming through the discussions in the last couple of days is not that we know what the key knowledge about school improvement is. We know what the ingredients are. It's, again, to use this metaphor, how do we mix the recipe for our own particular schools? What does the combination of the sort of these 8 factors look like, and how do they change over time as well? All right. So that's what I want to try and just sort of lead us into a little bit of a discussion about in the last few minutes of the morning. The first point really is one that I have I've used a version of this slide previously, which is an attempt to summarize some of the sort of the learning that we have been talking about this morning, some of the key leadership strategies, the narrative, the focus, the unrelenting focus on the quality of teaching and learning. Again, one colleague talked to Trish at lunchtime yesterday and said, well, if you spent 3/4 of your time in classrooms, what did you do with the other work? And she said, well, what other work? And we find that a lot of the management stuff that we are required to do, the busy work, we need to be getting other folk to do that. We need to be absolute ruthlessness about how we spend our time, but where we should also be spending time is here, because in order to achieve that, there is about sort of how we organize the school, how we redesign the school, and how we create clarity, consistency, and continuity of the systems which actually support sustainability in the school. Now, again, if we're dealing with concrete issues here, concrete examples here, how we monitor, how we do assessment for learning, our approaches to professional development inside the school. All of these are systems which we need to be putting into place. And this is not me being overly technocratic, because it's the systems which allow the sort of the spontaneity and the sort of the joy and the sort of vibrancy of the school culture. You could see that in the video. I can see it in a lot of your schools, but they're also pretty tightly organized. The two are not sort of inconsistent. And in fact, I think in highly successful schools, the systems are actually quite palpable, because it's that which actually sort of enables the more creative work to be done. We'll talk a bit more this afternoon about internal accountability and reciprocity. But then I think this point is one that's been sort of lurking around all the time in the discussion this morning, that you are also, because you're doing these things well, you're also then acting upon the context in which your students are coming, all right? So we are having an impact upon the community. We are changing the aspirations of our community and our parents as well. So that's a sort of a picture of the sort of profile of leadership in the types of challenging circumstances we find ourselves.